Hello everybody, this is Nicodemus, and today I will be providing you with my first ever tutorial. And we'll be doing this on Kerbal Space Program. So I'm just going to get right into it. We're going to go to Start Game. This tutorial is going to be it's going to be doing your first rocket, the very basics of rocketry in the Kerbal world, and basic user interface stuff. So I'm going to go to sandbox mode. That way we have all parts available and everything's already unlocked. I'm going to call this KSP Tutorials. Alright. And start. And I'm going to override this. I did a test run earlier for my audio and visuals and everything, so just started a new one. Okay, so when you start you have 6 different areas. You have your vehicle assembly building, which is where you will build all your rockets, satellites, and everything. Here you have your spaceplane hangar, your astronaut complex, where you hire little Kerbonauts, your research and development, which for career mode would be your technology tree, your tracking station, and your launch pad. So we're going to go to vehicle assembly building, and I will show you the very basics of getting a rocket into the air. So when you get here, you have these tabs. You get 7. Yes, 7 tabs. Okay. And the first one that will be open will be your pods. These are your command pods, cockpits for your planes, and space probes, which is right here. And these are remote guidance units, which we'll talk about later. So for the very basics, I'm going to go to propulsion tab, which is where our engines and fuel tanks are. And I'm going to select the solid fuel booster. Now this is an engine that has a fuel tank and a rocket motor built into it as one assembly. Whereas on the other hand, you could have a fuel tank and then put your own engine on the bottom of it right there. And you can do different engines depending on what you're going to be using it for. But for now, I'll show you the solid fuel booster. And I'm not going to put a pod on this actually, I'm just going to go to the aerodynamics tab and put a nose cone on it. And that is the most basic you could get. That's it. No, you could get less, you could do that. But then it's not as aerodynamic, and I don't like that. So you're going to hit the launch button. This is just telling me that I don't have a command pod and I won't be able to really control this thing in any way. Actually, yes. We will need a pod, actually. I'm being very dumb. Okay, so there's our pod, and now we don't need the nose cone. But this gives me the opportunity actually to show you something else. If you go to Utility, you can get a parachute put on here. And since we're doing this, I might as well show you one other thing. If you go to the Structural tab, you get what's called a stack decoupler. And this will separate your engine from your command module. So there we go, that's pretty basic. You don't get a whole lot more basic than this. These tabs over here on the right side that are numbered are your stages. So it starts from the bottom and goes up. This is actually completely opposite of what we want it to be. So what we're going to do is just drag our engine to the bottom. We're going to add one more. Put our decoupler in the second stage. And our pod is just going to go back on top there. Alright, so now we're ready, and we're going to do a launch. Okay, so here is our launch pad. And here you get a couple things. Up at the top, it'll show you your altitude. So right now, just sitting here, we're at 74 meters above sea level, I believe is how they measure that one. You get a dial that will show you your thrust. And when you're launching, you want to try to keep this at 100. And it'll show you your atmospheric pressure as well. Let me move these mod buttons. just to get them out of the way. I'll move that one over there. And I actually won't be using these mods today, so you don't really have to worry about those. Configuration. I'm going to unlock the position for this mod, and I'm just going to move this guy. I'm going to move him right over here. And maybe in a later video I'll teach you guys about a couple of these mods I run, which are really basic mods. Turn that off. Okay, so you get your dial up top, and over here you'll get your pitch meter, your yaw meter, and your roll meter. Pitch is controlled with W and S, yaw is A and D, and roll is Q and E. Okay? And then you get your mighty nav ball, which is what you want to use to control. It's going to be your main point for controlling your rocket. So on the left hand side you have throttle. To throttle up you use shift. Throttle down is control, or you can hit X to kill it immediately. And on the right hand side it'll show your G-forces. Down here HDG is going to be your heading, and this is going to be your delta V, basically your velocity. If you hit the T key, it enables SAS, which is a stability control thing, and R will enable RCS, which is for your RCS thrusters once you get out of the atmosphere. Alright, so I'm going to throttle up, and spacebar is going to launch our rocket. I have a little bit of ability to control with the A and D and the W and the S keys. If it gets squirrely, like it starts getting out of control, you can hit T to enable SAS, and that basically just stabilizes it, so it's not so hard to control. Alright, whenever this fuel runs out right here, I'm going to hit space. That'll activate my decoupler, and we are decoupled. Now we just have to wait for this thing to fall back to Earth, and I'll show you the parachute assembly. You can actually speed time forward with the period key. As you can see, I get a time warp 3 times, 4 times, right there. And when you're this close into the atmosphere, you can only time warp up to 4. I guess because it doesn't want you to start messing things up. But, so that's your time warp. Period will fast forward, and the comma key will go back down to normal. So I'm going to face this little prograde node here, which is going against my velocity. As you can see, I'm falling. And I just want to sit right on that as it falls. Alright. We're approaching the Kerbal space station. Or space center, I should say. It's not a space station, it's a space center. We're still on Earth. Or Kerbin, as they like to refer to it in this game. So I'm going to release this thing right at about 2,500 meters altitude. And that's going to be spacebar again. The mouse wheel will zoom in and out. And this parachute is going to automatically deploy itself once we reach 500 meters. If you watch this right here. And there it goes. Deployed itself. There goes our engine we jettisoned earlier. Nice little explosion. And I'm just going to time warp till this thing hits the ground. Those little beeps and voices you hear randomly are one of my mods, I guess. I lied to you guys. I said I wouldn't use one, but I'm using one. I'm using Chatter. It just gives you what you hear, the beeps and the voices, just to make it a little bit more realistic. And we have touchdown. So there is our first launch and recovery. You can hit recover vessel up here to take you back to the space station. This is another mod, don't worry about that. So there it is, guys, that's your basics. That's launching a very basic rocket and deploying a parachute and recovering it. My next video I'll talk about our other rocket engine assemblies we have. I might start getting into some orbits. I'll start talking about apoapsis and periapsis. Yeah, we'll see. Have a good one, guys.